What is up, everyone? Carmen coming at you with another deck tech this week, this time for Lycoris Recoil. I've been playing this set a whole lot. Those of you that know me know that I am a massive fan of this property. Can't wait for it to come to English, so picked it up in Japanese. Got that good old early bird special on Nova TCG, and I've been playing it ever since I got it in. I sleeved the whole playset in the same color sleeves and have been testing all sorts of stuff. What I have landed on might be similar to what you've seen before from a couple other people, because I've been talking with Chairman Simu, who you've also seen on not only his own channel, Chairman TCG, as well as Restless Collectibles. We've been talking back and forth on Discord, talking about, different cards we've been trying, things like that. But Pants Door, even though that was where a lot of maybe all of us started when we were looking at Lycoris, that is where I also landed after trying out a bunch of different things. There's definitely some funny, cool stuff in Lycoris, but it wasn't as effective as this one was. Utilizing the Chisato and Takina dual top end finisher. Familiar with Assault Lily at all? It's kind of like that Riri Yu top end, but with a little bit of a different way to deal damage. Not Icy Tails, does something else. And then using this Pants level 1 combo, where both level 1 combos in Lycoris that are pretty good. There's a Magro, and then there's this one that's a cigarette style combo. They both have like an added, extra stapled effect on it. And the second one with this lets us do some really cool stuff that ties in with other stuff that also helps our top end. So let's just jump right into it. Lots of zeros to get through this time. So we were going to play 4 of the Takina JC. One of the best parts about playing Lycoris in my experience so far is you get to tri-field every single game, no matter what is happening, no matter what you do, no matter what you open. It is an easy breezy tri-field with lots of different bills. And part of the reason for that is all these super stacked level zeros, and this is one of them. It's a 4K on turn JC. When your other lane is front attack, pay 1, sack this, bounce any of your other characters back to hand. Every card in our deck is going to be like a wreck or a weapon, so you don't have to worry about any weird trait stuff with this set. Pretty much every card works together. But yeah, 4K on turn JC beats over big stuff, and then helps us save our utility cards. So you get this card, probably the card we'll see next, and then any other utility card, you just bounce it back to hand. Really letting you very easily play the level 0 game very aggressively if you want to, which you usually do. You want to get that extra stock because we got a big finisher to pay for. Supporting this Takina, I am choosing to play the Takina Bomb. I was definitely pretty suspicious on this one at first. I know Siwa loves this card. I tested it alongside the runner, both together, and I was very underwhelmed by it. But I know that Siwa loves it, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to cut the runner completely, which is this Chisato you see over here to the left, which is a free runner, and then also a pay 1, clock yourself salvage when it dies. So it's, it's a plus going first, ideally, and then also, you can slam it when it dies, get another plus. This card is also a plussing card. It is a 500 power stock bomb, and then when it is reversed in battle, you can send itself to clock, reveal the top card of your deck. If that is a Lycoris or a weapon character, you add it to your hand. Notably, this card is free. The selection in the early game is about the same when you're comparing a very small grave to the top of your deck. You're pretty much just getting a card, unless you were lucky enough to not only cancel at 0, but cancel with one of your level 1 combos or another card that you want to grab. So selection early, about quote unquote the same. The Chisato runner definitely scales better with its second effect. However, the fact that this is free, the fact that this is a zone bomb, so you get to do all the cool denial plays early, as well as have another plussing card in your deck. This card was just gas all the time. The second I cut the runner, trying to run them both together was extremely awkward, and I would always choose the runner over this card in those situations, but then I would see times where the bomb was good, and it also just ate into slots in other parts of the deck. So definitely choose one or the other. I've really been loving the Takina Bomb, but does it matter that much? Probably not. But the Takina Bomb is definitely super sick, and I wanted to put it on here instead of just throwing the runner on there and talking about the bomb otherwise, because the bomb's been really sick, and I implore people to try it out. Moving on here to some of our utility, we have the Mizuki Fukazero. So it is on play, give any of your opponent's front row characters minus 1,000 power, and then it is on death, discard a card and look at up to 4 cards from the top of your deck, choose a level 1 or higher card from among them, add it to your hand. We're not playing any events or anything like that, so this is just a level 1 or higher character. Book a 0 like they usually are. The minus 1,000 is actually really sick in combination with another card we'll get to soon. The reason I play this and not the Majima is completely based on timing. Even though we have a ton of zeros in the deck, I would rather risk whiffing than have to play a card that is on reverse. Those of you who have watched the set reviews and been on the channel for a while know that I absolutely loathe that timing for on reverse mills because they scale poorly and just not something I want to deal with. However, the level 0 Majima, double rare, is a big beater on your turn, and then when it gets reversed, you can mill up to 4, take any character, which, you know, a little bit better than this, leads into another level 0 turn. Also works better with the 1/1 Majima later. So there's our give and takes there, but I really like having the safety net of being able to play over Chiri in main phase. I really like that on death timing. That is just my preferred way to play one of these mill cards, but you could probably replace this with the Majima and it would function pretty much the same. It is all just personal preference for this kind of slot, but the extra mill is definitely really nice as well for filling your grave for your cigarettes combo, as well as just, you know, helping you rip through first deck like we usually want to do in these 1k1 decks. Next, we have the Brainstorm. We got this Kurami. When you play a climax, you can look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck and rearrange them before, you know, you get to your swings. And then it is a self-tap salvage Brainstorm. Again, hits on everything. This works really well with our finisher. This gives us a lot of really cool manipulation and min-maxing throughout the game. We want to slam a lot because we have not only our climax combo that's an on-interactive plus, we also have a supporting level 1 that can help us get extra stock. So because we're slamming very often, we have more opportunities to check our opponent's top deck. Say we see a climax and a clean card. We're trying to maximize our damage. Maybe we move the climax up from the 2nd position to the 1st, side with a card that might not be winning lane, because, you know, we don't get that big on offense. We're a very traditional 1k1 deck, not really vying overtly for board. So if we see that climax in the 2nd position, we can move it up and side with our opponent's level 1s with a level 0, and then swing for 2 in one of the other lanes. There's a lot of cool little min-maxy plays like that you can do with this card. So really cool passive secondary effect. Then, of course, help set up for the finisher. I'll get to that when we get to that package of cards. Last 2 of here is this Fuki. So when any of your characters direct attack while this card is on the board, choose one of your opponent's front row characters and it gets minus 1,000 power. Remember, we had the Mizuki before that gave our opponent's front row minus 1,000 power. This can give potentially an additional minus 2,000 to one of your opponent's characters. So you can kind of chain this along with the Fuka 0 as well as, you know, successive attacks on your turn to pop one of your opponent's cards, get an early direct lane, push extra damage, maybe deny an on reverse ability from a small card, which is always nice. The fact that you can get multiples of it with from a single direct lane with 2 small cards, say you play a runner, you're against a deck like Saikono, they drop down to 500 power area drop searches and they leave you 1 open lane. You attack with 1, pop 1, attack with another, pop the other. Really cool plays that you can do with this. Oh, and did I mention that this card is also a power crept version of the admin from Sal? You can send this card to clock to look at up to 4 cards from the top of your deck and choose a character from among them. Doesn't even have to be level 1 or higher. Choose any character and add it to your hand. Really good first deck speed, gives us a main phase clock ability so that we won't get level lock at 0, as well as, you know, giving us a little bit of extra blue. You're going to notice we're playing a blue level 1 combo, but blue seems sort of light, but cards like this that send themselves to clock helps out your color, and obviously you want to resolve them early, especially on first deck if you can, because this card sends itself to clock for cost. That is an extra damage that you are taking. But this card just has 2 completely insane abilities stapled to it. One of the strongest cards in Lycoris. You'll see this in pretty much every deck, as well as this one for, you know, the reasons I just mentioned. Couple more utility slots here. Again, we are a deck that plays a cigarette style combo, so we want to have really good utility cards, a really good toolbox to pick up off that, because, you know, cigarettes can always hit a 0. This is one of them. This is kind of similar to the TD Rimuru from Slime. A little different, but it is a double filter. On play, discard a character, draw, and then also on play, discard a climax, salvage. We are playing pants. Sometimes we can get flooded. The on-demand costless filter is really nice just to have. The fact that we're playing a cigarette style combo, you mill, you hit a 0, you have nothing better to pick up. This is like your go-to I have nothing else better to get card at that time, because it's just a really good solid plus that helps you flex into the next turn. one of the Check 3 Brainstorms. You could just play another salvage Brainstorm if you don't want to dedicate sculpts to like finding your Brainstorm. In my experience, because you have the JC and you're spending stock on other things early, you don't really need Brainstorm as a stock out in this deck on first deck, because you know they have the Frick Zero that mills, your combo mills a little bit, you have the Fuki that's under yourself the clock to mill. You don't really have to be burning through your deck with Brainstorms per se, or use them as stock outs. You have other things to use your stock on early. So because of that, I decided to keep my primary Brainstormer count, the Kermi, to 2, and then attack one of this Check 3 Brainstorm. Again, we like to slam a lot, and we are sometimes generating extra stock through one of our other cards. So this gives us an ability to, you know, take that resource, turn it into cards as well as deck speed to also find another climax to, you know, in turn make more resources. Deck 3 Brainstorms can be really strong, and, you know, just we had the ability to play one, so it's been really paying out dividends. The first effect is kind of trolly. We're only playing 4 doors, but when you trigger check a door, you force mill your opponent for 4. Can be funny, but it's completely random. Milling your opponent randomly does not really help you cancel or help them take damage unless you happen to hit a door when they are extremely compressed on a small deck state, which you have very little control over. But, you know, fringe situation, maybe it comes up, but hasn't really for me. It's just really an extra line of text staple to a Check 3 Brainstorm, which is the primary reason I put in the deck. Again, could run an extra Kermi if you wanted, but I really like having the flex, a 2-1 split of Brainstorms. Last 2 level 0s here, we have the TD Mizuki on play and on death drop search. Again, our clock plus is from the top of the deck. Our other plus is popping back from your field. So we need to have a way to rip cards out of our deck if needed. And this is a double timed version of a tried and true drop search effect. So it makes our way into the deck, even though it has no other effect like the Yui and Sal does, but you really don't need it. This is 2 effects on 1 card. And then also from the TD is the Mizuki Climax swap. This one is costless because you sack another character. Stock is our main gate in this deck for our finisher. Our finisher is very hand light. It requires specific cards, but one part of the combo salvages cards, making it very easy for you to get into the full combo even from just 1 or 2 parts of it. So having a stockless way to swap into the right climax, especially when, you know, we're only playing 4 pants, we need the door for the top end, is very nice. Even though the costed option, the Takina doing the infamous Sakana pose, does have that submarine effect where you can sink one of your opponent's characters at the bottom of the deck if they're alone. I opted for this just because it played better into that finisher. Moving into level 1s, we got this Chisato and Takina on play. As long as you have another character, gets 2k. We'll swing in with 75 with the climax. It is on attack, mill the top 2, salvage X or lower. That is colloquially referred to as the cigarettes effect. On play are on attack, mill 2, and then the salvage X or lower, where X is the number of combined levels of the 2 cards that you milled, and then you can salvage from there. Decent selection, decent deck speed, not too great at either. However, this one has a nice little extra effect staple to it. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck before your attack and rearrange them. If you play this alongside another copy, you get another opportunity to look at the top of your deck and maybe trigger a 0 and then mill a level 3 to salvage a better card in your next cigarettes, as well as just make sure you're not milling climaxes. You have these out in multiples. What you can also do is field maybe 2 of these alongside this card, this Chisato that we played a 3 count. It gives the character across from it Encore 2, not the worst drawback, but it does get to be vanilla stats, 1055 because of it. And then when this attacks, as long as you have a climax down, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if that card's level 1 or higher, send it to stock. If we have 2 of these down and can rearrange the top of our deck before we go into our next attack, we can see a level 1 or higher card, trigger the one that's not, trigger a level 0, and then on the next attack, swing in with this, reveal that level 1 or higher card, and get that free stock. So we get +2 in hand, as well as +1 in stock if we field 2 of these level 1 combos alongside 1 of this Chisato. It's been a pretty powerful line, as well as just being able to slam climaxes all game with having a card like this in your deck to coin flip for extra stock, even when you don't have one of the combos down to, you know, try to peak your trigger. All right, now let's get into the X factor of the deck. Lycoris Recoil does not have too many insane or super unique cards. However, this is the one in the set. This card is nuts. This 1/1 Majima is an assist in front, gives the characters in front of him the ability, when they are reversed, if you have less stock than your opponent, send this card to stock. And then he also has act, pay to salvage. So this card does a couple things. On its face, it is a full 3-card stock out from your previous turn that gives you another card that replaces itself on the turn you play it, right? You pay 1, pay 2, tap him, salvage a character. So it gives you a selective salvage. Then if that pay 3 out puts you at a stock disparity versus your opponent, you can then crash in or maybe trade with the next 2 cards we're going to see into your opponent's characters and get your stock back. And in a way, if you use this intelligently, especially in certain matchups where your opponent's stock charges a lot, like something like Alice, or, a standby deck that's kind of, running away with the board and they're generating a lot of excess stock. What you can do is basically not only always stay at a stock parity with your opponent, always having the same amount of stock when you pass back to turn, but you can go +1 over them with this card, while this card basically, always giving you gas, because every turn you're going back up to the same amount of stock as your stock charging opponent, paying 2, getting a card, putting another card out, that card goes to stock. Even better if those cards happen to trade. This card basically lets you sit there and EP heal forever, because even if your EP heal is small or something like that or gets run over, you get to send it to stock, or you get to send your other cards to stock as you kind of dirtle out the level 2 and get your pieces together for your finisher. This card can just give you infinite gas, infinite sustain, provided you're in a matchup where you have the ability to use it. And in the matchups where you don't really need it, again, it is a full 3 stock out from the previous turn that is better than you hard encoring a card in many cases. And it's still a pay to tap salvage, a playable effect once it's on the board. Definitely one of the coolest cards, one of the reasons to be playing Lycoris. This card feels insane to play with, extremely rewarding to play with, as well as just really powerful and unique. It's an effect we've never seen before, and at least not that I know of. I believe there might have been one set that had this before, but this is the first time that it had both a plussing effect on it, which feeds into itself, as well as having a deck that can really take advantage of it. Again, we are stock gated for our finisher, so having a way to constantly get back up to stock parity in the matchups where we have the opportunity to use it is really, really nice. And in fact, in a lot of these matchups, even stuff like Alice, where they just sit there and stock charge a bunch, this card is so strong, and how it opens up lanes so you take more damage, usually get to 3 first, but not that often. They give you level 2s to go into with your finisher board. You can get some really nasty game steals against decks like that with the way your combo works, using this card to keep yourself at a constant flow of resources, when otherwise you'd be getting choke dry, since your opponent's always controlling the board and has all these defensive counters and is constantly building stock. But this singular card not only keeps you in the game, but puts you in such a position that honestly, sometimes sitting across from Alice, I even feel favored with this card on the board, depending on how the game is going. Of course, Alice is an extremely popular deck, and by the time Recoil finally comes out in English, might not be around anymore. However, decks like that, this card is absolutely insane. I can't gush about it enough, but if I sit here and keep rambling about it, I won't talk about the rest of the deck, so we can move on here. Helping you trade with your cards with the Majima, I definitely wanted to include the Adachi. This is just your normal bog standard Adachi. Unfortunately, is yellow, no other option for an Adachi, but it's a card that helps you trade with an early player, a big card or something like that that's been early played to the board, and then potentially send it to stock with Majima and get it out of there. Also, another card that can trade with our opponent's card is this Mizuki. It is a red reverse bomb for level 1s and lower, but the cool part is you can ditch a card and send this to the bottom of your deck to salvage any character in your waiting room. That's a really cool utility effect. Again, we're playing a cigarettes combo. We want to have cards that are generally good to pick up when we hit a 1 or a 0. We can't sculpt super far going forward or pick up an early player or a finisher. So we just need a card that is a plus that flexes us into our next turn to, answer our opponent with whatever they throw out. And this is a great card for that. It's just a general bomb that will trade with our opponent's 1s and lower, potentially sends itself to stock off the Majima, or can send itself to the bottom of the deck, filter out your hand to grab a better option for the upcoming upcoming turn. All right, getting into the level 2s and like the rest of the finishing package here. I am playing the Mizuki Soul Assist. This is a 500 and +1 soul to characters in front of her assist, and then when you use an act, you can give a character 1,000 power. The act 1,000 power part doesn't really matter. We're not even playing any backups in this build. However, I am playing this over the 3-2 Kurami. Our finisher combo does have a restand in it. Restanders are notoriously susceptible to defensive counters, stuff like neg soul across, stuff like memory kick, they don't win their lane, or like tap counter, all that crazy stuff. And I was thinking about playing the Kurami. The Kurami is a fake stock swap. I don't even want to talk about the stock swap part. It's one of those ones like Aqua from Hololive. You send all of your opponent's stock to their deck and then put the same amount of cards back. I call it fake because you can't use it in the way that a stock swap is most effective. Shout out to Weave Shorts Tyler on his channel. Great video out there that shows you how to correctly use stock swaps. And this card basically always uses the stock swap quote unquote wrong. I know that the floor is always like higher than where you started if your opponent is compressed. I understand that. It's like a Hail Mary, but it's still a Hail Mary decompression effect. And if I'm paying 3 stock to do that, it better be good, and it really isn't. The other part of this card that is cool about it it's not only that fake stock swap, but it's also a bouncer. So the bounce ability could help you deal with like, you know, a nasty card on your board that might have memory kick or something like that. Your opponent holding up some kind of defense, you can get rid of it with this. However, that only really counts for one lane. Decks right now can put out multiple big lanes that are capable of threatening multiple defensive effects. So what the Soul Assist does is let us set up side attacks. And repeated side attacks with restanders. When you have that +1 soul going, it only takes one additional trigger, and even if you don't, with the way this combo works, for you to start putting some pretty gross numbers out there. So you can like side for 1, then do the ping effect off the finisher, then side for 1, then restand back up again. If you triggered, then you side again for 2, or now that you've already attacked once, if it's in your last lane or something like that, you open up the ability to front, which after not siding again gives you, you know, that additional soul because side attacking sticks. I think that this lets you be a lot more modular and a lot more sneaky with how you use the finisher to make sure you're getting the optimal numbers with it to kill your opponent every time. I say this all the time. On every time I have the ability to do so. Damage modulation is one of the strongest things in Weiss Schwarz when it comes to finishers. Soul modulation will win you so many games, no matter how far the game goes in terms of power creep. This kind of effect will always be good, especially when you have, you know, multiple attacks, multiple opportunities. And again, as the game gets power crept and we get more and more insane stuff like Alice on the board, which is this big level 2, or level 1s that never go away, stuff like Eris, where they're just too big for you to get rid of and your opponent rides them the whole game, or even Murin coming out in Slime, where we just did the set review the other week. As the more of these sticky non-level 3s sit on the board, the better opportunities you have to get nutty side attacks with stuff like restanders, especially with something like a Soul Assist. I was talking about just a level 3, playing around the worst case scenario where opponent has 3 big level 3s and weird defensive counters. You can use this to really get away with murder. But if your opponent leaves you 1s and 2s, you actually just get to completely pick them apart. You can get really crazy when you have the ability to have, you know, this Soul Assist for getting the exact numbers as you want while also staying completely immune to defensive counters and all that other stuff. So I have found this to be a much better solution than the bounce, especially because I also hate the stock swap effect. If you like the stock swap effect, I mean, you can throw that in there. Again, it does have the bounce. It'll get you out of plenty of situations, but I really like having the flex of the Soul Assist. And when you're in the mid game sometimes and you just need to like slam this, pay out of stock, you're getting constant soul to front in a 1k1 deck, which can be pretty strong. Notably, I'm not playing the change package into this because at a 1-1 line, it was too clunky and didn't do anything. And when I increased the package to any more of a count, it got really hairy, and I just completely hated it because it was just too clunky to try to get it out. But just having this as the one of to just pay 1 stock, throw it down, and get that effect to help me set up my finisher and dodge defensive counters and get those good numbers was the far more important part of the package. So I have kept it in because it's been really great at that role. Other level 2 here, really a slim line of 2 level 2 Mizukis, is the Fumio. This is an on-play, pay 1, discard a card. Your opponent chooses 1 climax in their waiting room and then shuffles everything else back in their deck. So just a 1-cost Fumio for an overall 2 and ditch a card cost. And then it is also a level 2 or lower bomb. Again, as stuff like Alice and Murin runs around, this card just gets better with that second line of text, but you play it for the Fumio. Getting into the finishing package, I'm going to go over both of them, then I'll talk about them. So this is the Chisato. This is on-play salvage a character, and then once per turn at the end of this card's attack, pay 3, ditch any card. As long as the door is in your climax area and you have 2 or more other characters, you can stand this back up. So this is the restander portion of the combo. The Takina is on-play heal, and then when the door is placed on your climax area, if this is in the front row, you can put this 3/2 Chisato underneath this Takina as a marker. All of your other characters get 3,000 power, and the following ability: when this attack, your opponent mills 1. If that card is a level 0 or lower card, so that is level 0 or lower characters, climaxes, and events, if you're playing against Little Busters, deal 1 damage to your opponent. Now, that is not as good as Riri. You use Icy Tail for 3. However, it is a traditional piece of damage if it hits. Again, you can set up the first one using the Kurami Brainstorm effect, where you look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck and rearrange them. Even better if you can put a climax in that first position to be milled. Now, you can also get even sneakier with this, because these kind of work independently of one another. In games that go fast and are completely garbage, you can still always play a single Chisato, because the Chisato will give you a card back to ditch for our effect, provided that you have the climax, and all 3 attacks will give you a single restand. So like the absolute bottom floor is that this card still works, and then you can combine them in whatever way you want. So your opponent has 1 giant big lane, something like a bodyguard, and you have no idea how you're going to clear it. Instead of playing the usual case, which is 2 of these Chisatos and 1 Takina with 1 marker underneath her, giving you 2 restanders, both with 1 instance of the effect. So you get a coin flip for a ping, attack, 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 and then the attack from the Takina. So you get potentially 9 instances of damage, but math it out, get a coin flip to hit each one provided after the first one, where you give yourself the ability to kind of set it up. You're getting a little bit less than that, but that's the theoretical maximum. You can flip it around. You can play 2 Takina with Chisatos under her as markers and 1 Chisato restander, which would give you a 17k before any other buffs Chisato that has 2 instances of that coin flip to mill effect. So you'd get coin flip burn, attack, coin flip burn, attack, and then the 2 attacks from the Takina. So you have 2 different ways to pull it off. I've done both. The better one, quote unquote better one, is 2 Chisatos, 1 Takina, which requires 8 stock for you to do the full combo. The Takina one is a little bit harder to set up because you need multiple Takinas and the Chisato salvages, which is the other great part of this combo. If all you have in hand is a single Chisato and a single Takina, if you are going for the double Chisato line, that is all you need. You need a single Chisato, a single Takina, and the climax. Provided there are 2 Chisatos in your graveyard, you play down the Chisato, pick one up, play down the second Chisato, pick one up, slam down your Takina, slam the climax, shove the third Chisato underneath Takina as a marker, and you are good to go. The fact that this sculpts itself out of nowhere, even though you have a larger stock cost, as well as being very light in the hand department on what it requires since the Chisato cantrips, means that this is a lot more efficient and comes out of nowhere more than you'd think. Yes, you are building up stock and stuff for your resources, but you have a bigger flex in your hand to play the rest of the game. It wasn't like Assault Lily, if anybody has played that, where you have to hoard all these pieces in your hand and you think it's not a lot, but that's still 2 Riris, a UU, and a climax. That's you have to find the climax somehow, so you have these other cards and stuff like that you can't really use later. They're just dead level 3s and things like that. Here it's only 2, and then you're either clutching the climax or you plan to draw into it or switch into it somehow on your finishing turn. And you are playing pants, so you have pants in deck. You get the ability to project that you're going to trigger and pick up your door or something of that nature. It is a lot easier to sculpt and do. It is a lot less of a pain, also because of Majima, to always sit at that 7, 8, 9 stock threshold to do either kind of finisher that you need to. Again, you have some flex. You can do the multiple Takina version if you ever need to deal with something stupid where you really can only have like one restanding lane and your other lanes are kind of whatever. You can always go into the double Takina version, which will give you one big restander lane where you can side first then swing or something like that. If you truly can't have any lane that can get around a defensive thing somehow, you can still go off provided you have the resources to get it. Again, a little bit harder to set that one up, but if you are in a matchup where you need to do that, you'll have a lot of time to do so. Another thing you can do with the top two, if you whiff entirely, you see 2 level 1s and higher on the top of your opponent's deck. With the double Chisato line, just crash in your Takina first. Another thing you can do if your opponent has a giant board, crash in your Takina first. Her effect's on play. If this card leaves the board, and as long as Chisato has or 2 or more other Lycoris requirement fulfilled, after you slam the climax, the Takina is not doing anything. So crash that sucker in and get that extra stock back on your finishing turn, saving you a stock provided you have something to crash your Takina into. More stuff you can do, more little flexes makes the deck very rewarding to play. Lastly, got the Chisato early play. Beforehand in my earlier tests playing like a Recoil, especially with playing with a finisher that was kind of stock gated where you want to float around 8 stock to get that full double Chisato 1 Takina board, I didn't even really want to play a healing early play. That was until I fully vetted the Majima, because we have that in the deck. In the matchups where our opponent is winning board and like amassing all these resources, we can respond with like constantly slamming this down because this is a 4 or more early play to like heal and like try to like grind back and stuff like that. It's also just a generally pretty good early play. It is a 4 or more on play normal heal, and then as long as you have the Takina JC, which is a card that we play 4 of in our waiting room, this gets 3k power cross turn, so an 11k healer 4 or more for 1 turn cycle. And even if it's small, again, you can slam it specifically when it's small to maybe send it to stock off the Majima. If you're in those kinds of situations, really not that bad of a line. It's really in here just for the heal, especially because we usually only play 1 Takina down to the field, so that makes it so we kind of only play like 1 healer unless we're going to play early plays. So having another healing option in the deck has been really nice. If you really don't like it or something like that, you can play the yellow early play that just twin drives and quote unquote fields itself for free. And to wrap up here, our climax lineup: 4 pants, 4 door. I use the Takina door, all 4 Takina door when I can, because I think the angry Takina is very funny. But there are 2 different versions of the climax. Your opponent's not cheating. There are 2 different climaxes with the same name. You can only play up to 4 of them if you are lucky enough to have the foils. There are 4 different ones, all from the ED, which are super cute, which I can't wait to buy when it comes to English. Here's the deck all laid out again. Again, a lot of zeros, a lot of 1-ofs here. 2-ofs, 1-ofs are utility cards because of our cigarettes level 1 combo. We need to have those good utility pieces to pick up so that we can keep going. Pretty laser focused going into the finisher line. I have messed with alternative counts for the Chisato and the Takina at but a 4-4 count, because you can mix them and match them depending on the matchup, depending on what is best, and depending on what is better for the game state. I like just running a 4-4 line to make it easy. Also makes it not of a pain to pay things out of stock. Notably, you don't really want Chisato's going to stock because you want Chisato to pick up herself later. So you should try to pay out Chisato's when playing this deck like you would try to pay out climaxes. You don't really want them gone or trapped somewhere, because you really want the Chisato to be able to cantrip into 2 more copies of herself so that you have the full 3 for the double restander 1 Takina line. And with that, I have talked here for quite a bit. I love Lego Reco, so this was an opportunity to maybe talk about it before we get to the set review review for English, which is at this point going to be a very long way away, considering Bushiroad did not announce a release date for it at all at the most recent reveal stream. Probably pretty far off, probably into January or February at the earliest. So it is not on our radar for set reviews, but I've been playing it a lot. My locals have been seeing it a lot, both from myself and my other local Zach, who've been playing it, who also loves the series, and I wanted to get something out there to talk about it, to also break up these upcoming set reviews. Set reviews, the new format. Hope y'all liked it. It really helps us make content, enjoy making the content, as well as get it out there faster for all of y'all. Upcoming one is definitely Hololive 2. That is the next one on our radar. Tanner is still in for that, so that should be a lot of fun. Hopefully we don't groan too much about IMA, but I'm sure we will. And then after that, Azure Lane is the next one on our radar after we get Hololive done. So keep an eye out for those. And Pittsburgh White Schwartz signing off. We'll see you guys in the next one.